What an awesome intro.
Right? I'm still not over it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Chat. Kyra, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to be talking about how to launch an effective, book launch party. And we're going to be talking to some incredible authors and author coaches about how they navigated their book launch.
I've got my coffee. You got yours? I got my Luke's coffee mug. Gilmore Girls, where you at?
I have my cran strawberry juice. Kind of spring, kind of winter. It's a vibe in terms of the fruit combo. But that's where we are today.
Amazing. Well, all right. Without further ado, let's meet those fantastic guest panelists.
Dun, 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 dun. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So we'd love for our wonderful panelists to have the opportunity to introduce themselves. So Reilly, would you like to go first?
Sure. My name is Reilly Vore, and I'm an author coach, and I published my debut novel, All My Love from the Trenches, in August of this year, 2021, which feels way longer ago than it actually was.
I'm John Saunders. I think my title is Executive Author Coach. I published my book in December 2020, and did a lot of fun things around the book launch event, and happy to talk about that. And also have a coaching and consulting company called Forward Advisory Solutions.
Oh, cool.
Amazing. So we have a series of questions that we'd love to ask for you today. And as always, we'd love to remind the audience members watching that at any time you can ask a question in the chat. We have our eyes on it. We might bring your chat up on this, your question up on the screen later to ask these panelists. So in the meantime, Kyra and I have some planned questions for you. We might have follow-up, just natural conversation. This is how coffee chats go. So first question to start off with, where did you have your launch party?
Well, I had my launch party. So All My Love from the Trenches is a historical fiction set around World War I. So I found a historic house in central Indiana where I live that was built around the same time. So it was built, I think, maybe in like 1912, I want to say. I could be wrong, but it was built probably like right before the start of the war. And so I had my launch party in a historic house, and it was lovely.
Very cool. Very on brand.
Yeah, felt right.
See it.
That is really cool. I explored a lot of options. I think my book is Leadership, Nonfiction, Driving Innovation and Change. And it was in this, dead middle of COVID. So there weren't a lot of group activities going on. So that really wasn't an option. But I'll share this story because I think it might help people just sort of think more broadly about it. Like, don't limit yourself at all. I have a friend who's got an indoor, one of these where you hit golf balls into the big screen and they fly. I was thinking about putting like book images on that and doing it in front of that. Thought about doing it in front of my fireplace. Thought about doing it at one of my interviewees is a business owner here in town. He has a beautiful studio for audio recording in his office, but it was in the middle of COVID. They were just on lockdown, so I couldn't do it. But I throw these ideas out there to say, don't limit yourself, and think about all sorts of ways to do this, particularly if you're doing it live or virtual. So I ended up doing mine right here on StreamYard, and I thought it was fantastic. It's great to get the engagement from the audience through the comments live. As Mackenzie alluded to a minute ago, you can very easily throw the questions up on screen, which is a really cool feature, and it just makes everyone feel like they're a part of it. And you can customize all the background, as we see here with the Blind Tiger Cafe that somebody put together. I think Kyra put together here. So I did it on StreamYard. I did two, one for the beta readers exclusively, very different messaging for that audience, more of a thank you and that we're all in this together kind of thing. And then I did a public one as well, which was a very different message. But all on StreamYard.
Right. I actually have like a quick follow-up question about that. So for both of you, how did you determine what your audience was for your respective launch parties? Like, how did you determine whether or not you wanted something specific to the beta readers versus a more externally facing event?
I think I had kind of always planned on mostly just having a beta reader kind of event and like people that pre-ordered. Just because I thought that was like that. I mean, I think that's just like a super cool perk, and people think that's super cool that they get like exclusively invited to a launch party. So I was like, I don't know. I didn't really plan on having anything else after or like in addition to, because I was just like, that's a super cool perk. I would want that. I wouldn't want to like show up to something that I thought was like an awesome perk for pre-ordering, and there's like all these people that I know didn't buy a book, if that makes sense. So
Right.
I was like, I'd be like, I want my perk. So mine was pretty much just for beta readers and people that pre-ordered. So that's kind of how I went into that mindset. And I was like, if I wrote historical fiction and there's a historic home in the area, I was like, why not connect it? Like, that's just too fun. It's too perfect.
Yeah.
Why not?
The
So,
alignment.
and then of course, everyone's like, well, why did you pick the house? And then, you got to talk about the history of the house, the history of the book, and it all tied in together, and it was super fun.
That is super cool. So how did you decide on the audience? Was that the question?
Yeah. How do you decide on your audience and what you wanted to do for them to celebrate with them?
So I actually used the beta reader audience to answer that question. I asked a few peers, and they were doing things where they were going to sort of read part of their book to people and this kind of thing. And my observation from reaching out to a few of my key beta readers was that they had 0 to negative interest in watching me read my book on Zoom, which was sort of my first idea. So I was like, all right, that one's kind of dead. So then I started to think about, all right, there were a few famous people promoting books or launching books around the same time as me. So I asked, like, what are they doing? And, they're going on Jimmy Fallon and like Good Morning America and these kind of things. So I thought, how could I like try to replicate that? And to, the best without a, $3 million marketing budget. Right. And so I thought about how do I replicate that? I found StreamYard through that process. It gives you all this customization, which was really cool. And then I thought about, all right, who do I know that could interview me? And I have a friend who happens to be a Bloomberg journalist. So I reached out to her and said, hey, would you like to interview me on my book launch event? And she was super psyched to do it. Lisa Parenti, fellow NDP author. And then, so I had her interview me. So I, again, going through iterations with feedback from, I have a good friend who's in marketing and does event planning. So I talked to him about it, surveyed a bunch of my beta readers about it, and went through a number of iterations. But what we landed on was having her interview me for the first half hour about the book, about the journey. And the beta reader one was a bit different in that it was much more sort of behind the lens thing versus the other one, which was public facing, which was more about marketing my coaching company in the book. And so she interviewed me for 30 minutes, something like this. Then we brought in one of the key guests from my book, and I interviewed him for an executive for Microsoft for about maybe 15 minutes. Elisa went off screen, and then she came back and moderated a Q&A for all of us through the chat on StreamYard. And it went really well. Had like 100 people sign up. Most of them came and stayed on for a good bit of the session, which was great. And then for the public one, literally did the exact same model, but I took the 2 highest profile people for my book because then I was able to promote it through them. So I have one gentleman who's MCs global conferences like all over the world. And I interviewed him for the book, and he's just a consummate MC and just did an amazing job. So exact same model. He interviewed me. Then I brought in the highest profile person from my book, the co-founder of The Motley Fool. I interviewed him. Then he brought us, all of us came back on screen to answer the Q&A for the audience. But again, first one was very much like, thank you to this person, thank you to that person, read part of the acknowledgements, beta people who really dug in deep on the editing and beta reading revisions. I thanked them, out loud, and my parents. It was, very touchy feely kind of thing. Public one was more about, hey, I've got this coaching services, let's talk. So same model, but very different messaging.
I like that a lot. It's important to give people like kind of something to do or to be excited about, especially when you're doing a virtual event. Because like Reilly mentioned, like with having it at the house, it was a natural conversation starter. Why did you want to have it at this house? What's the history of the house and all those things? And virtual, I know when you launched your book, John, I mean, a lot of people were feeling Zoom fatigue. And so you did a really great job of engaging your audience and making them feel like what they were attending was special. So I really like that. And I like how you already started to answer this question, which is why I tossed it up on the screen while you were talking. What did you do at your launch party? So John talked about the interview setup and the Q&A. Was there anything else that you did that you didn't mention?
During the beta reader one, we read, Lisa was very generous and read some of the quotes from the back of the book, which was really cool, and gave us just a couple nuggets from inside the book. As I said, thanked some people that helped out, especially, which was really, I think, nice. Said some stuff to my parents, which was cool. They were on, and a bunch of friends that helped out. And I think that was most of it. But the other thought around this I would share about sort of what to do at that event is highly, highly, highly recommend whatever you do on that event, have your next one planned so you can promote it at that event. So, hey, thanks for coming. I'm doing this book talk. Get your ticket on my website, by March 31st or, whatever your day is. But I had an event, but I didn't have it quite fine-tuned yet. And so I couldn't really promote it. I felt that kind of bummed me out. So that was, if I were going to do it again, I would have been much more intentional about not just planning my book launch event, but what was next.
Yeah.
Because you have this audience, right? And so there's no better way to market them than with your own face and mouth, right? And live.
That's really good advice, because a lot of people who are thinking about, coming into launching right now, who are planning these launch events, there's already so much going on to even be thinking about what's next. Like that's that's solid advice.
Can I mention one other thing? On somebody put something in the chat about virtual or live. I would tell you, even if you're comfortable doing a live event at this point, whatever your preference is, I would highly recommend if you're going to do live, I would absolutely encourage you doing virtual as well. Because one, your people probably aren't all in the same town or time zone, right?
Yeah.
So this way you can grab people all over the country. I had some people from Europe that came on, which was really cool. And I did one with another author where we did it early in the morning. I hosted one for an author. It was for Asia. But what's great about the virtual one is that it just gives you all this video content. And so I would then took it and spent maybe like $100 on Fiverr and had a guy cut it up into like 6 or 7 promo clips. And that gave me content to put out for the next several weeks. So I would highly recommend doing both if you're going to do one or the other and have that next event planned. Don't think about the book launch as your Super Bowl. Think about it as your kickoff.
That's awesome. 100%. I agree with that.
Thanks.
Yes, I concur with all aforementioned statements. That's really cool.
Kyra, Reilly, what did you do at your launch party?
So again, like my launch party was actually like kind of interesting because I had it in a historic place. It was actually super fun because there are like different, tiers and different levels of the house and that you can like rent out. So what I did was I actually just rented out like the whole first floor of the house, which was super fun because there were like 3 or 4 main rooms. And then there was like a sunroom area, which I had my launch party in early October. So the weather was still, relatively nice. So it was kind of fun that people could just, meander through the house. So that was super fun and super interesting. And then there was, there's like a little museum space upstairs. And so people that were working in the house for my event could take people upstairs and see the museum space if they wanted to, which was super, super fun. Because they have, different things from the house originally, like that were in the house. That was super fun. And obviously it was a smaller place than, like the estate that I talk about in my book, but it was still super fun to just kind of have that glimpse for people. And then I did have like a little bit of a chat with people who had already read pieces of my book, because at that point I had already started writing the next book that will come out soon. So I was actually already fully engrossed in the writing process at that point. So I kind of got to talk about the next one, which was kind of weird to do at a launch event almost. But it was also super fun for people who had already read portions of the book that could be like, oh, what's going to happen with this? Or do you talk about this? And so that was kind of fun that I got to talk to people who had already read it. And so, yeah, it was pretty casual, but it was super fun because there were lots of moving parts and people that were meandering through the house and talking to me. And so it was pretty low key, but it was super fun.
Well, that feels like a natural segue too, because I remember when I had my launch party, people were like, so when's book 2? And I was like,
right.
What? Can we focus on 1 for a second?
A vibe.
Hey,
yeah, that was a super weird thing because I wasn't, planning to write book 2 so fast, but then it kind of just naturally happened. And people were asking me about book 2, and I could be like, well, actually, it's in the works. So that was fun.
Did you serve any kind of food or drinks or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. We kind of did like, it was more like tea, which again, kind of just felt very on brand and made sense. So we kind of did like finger food and like a cake and then like punch and tea and stuff like that. So it was very like a tea party situation, which I was living all my childhood dreams in that moment. So.
Ooh.
Well, and if I remember correctly on Instagram, you had the cover of your book printed on top of the cake.
Yeah, there's an amazing bakery near me, and I went and I took her a copy of my book, and I was like, hey, I'm having a launch event, and I need a cake, and I trust you completely. Go ahead. Here's my cover for any kind of inspiration. And she like printed the like old-fashioned postcard that my title sits on my book, and she like even put like the embossing like stamp on it, and it was so detailed and it was beautiful. I was scared to drop it like the whole way to my party. I was like, I'm gonna drop this cake and it's gonna be for nothing, but it was great.
One note on what I think Zara put in the chat here. I asked a lot of people for feedback about the event. How did it go? And one of the things they talked about that Zara's talking specifically about in the her comment here is they really liked the interactivity of it. So it wasn't just me talking at them for an hour on Zoom or whatever. It was this kind of changing dynamic of me talking to this guy, this other person talking to this person. It's kind of bouncing around. So again, I was just trying to replicate what I would watch, sort of Matthew McConaughey doing on Good Morning America and these kind of things. And people really appreciated that rather than just watching me read on Zoom, as appealing as that sounds.
I don't know. You have a nice speaking voice, John. So
thank you.
I mean,
Should we try? I've got my book right here. See how long people stick around for.
How long did it take for you guys to plan your launch party?
Admittedly for me, it looked way more planned than it was. I spent a really long time looking for the space because I wanted the space to feel authentic and like significant. I didn't want to have it someplace random. And Central Indiana is not like super exciting. So my options were limited. So I probably spent a little too much time looking for my space. So then by the time I found it, I was like, all right, let's just throw this together and make it look pretty. Which the house really did for itself. So yeah, I probably spent a good like few months looking for the space, but the actual like planning of what would go on at the event, I knew I wanted it to be casual. I didn't want it to feel super formal or stuffy, and I don't love speaking in front of people. So I was like, I don't want to talk to all of you at one time. I'll talk to little groups of you. So I didn't want it to feel formal in any way. So so I wanted it to feel more casual. So I probably spent the most time looking for my space.
I would tell you probably 20 hours I probably spent preparing, talking to different people, getting their feedback, getting their ideas, talking to a friend I might have mentioned earlier who's a marketing and event planning specialist. He and I brainstormed several nights about it, came up with this whole list of, I kind of rattled off the different locations we went through before, thinking about the goals that I wanted to have.
20 hours of planning, not like you started 20 hours before the event, right?
Right. Like 2 or 3 hours a night over the course of, 2 or 3 weeks. And then just figuring out StreamYard was a lot harder than I thought. Now that I'm comfortable with it and I've used it a bunch of times, it's much like the second one was way less planning than the first one, but getting StreamYard up and running and feeling confident that when I hit live, it was actually going to work on Facebook and YouTube. And I feel like we had one other, I think it was just those two. And that was because there's these nuances to StreamYard and Facebook that are really tricky and annoying. And so just figuring out that, I said, just figuring out the whole StreamYard thing and feeling confident that it was going to work when I hit go live. That took a lot more time than I thought it would. And most of it is just these little kind of nuances that aren't so obvious. And so I've actually helped a lot of people plan StreamYard events since then and saved them, I think, hours, because all these goofy, just making the background on Canva was one issue. As an example, you have to hit, there's a button on Canva, I forget what they call it, but like make it see-through or something like this. So when it goes up there, it's not covering all the videos people. It has to hide behind them. And I'm forgetting what the word was right now, but I didn't know that. So I was like, oh, why does every banner I make keep covering everybody up? I didn't know. And there's a button, I'm forgetting what it's called on Canva, but you have to select that. So hiccups along the way. Facebook, you can only schedule the event on there 7 days in advance. I didn't want to wait till 7 days out. So then I had to figure out this little link across thing. I forget the word for it, but anyway. Oh, and then YouTube, I finally said, I'll use YouTube instead. And they make you wait like 3 days to do some kind of, I don't know, check on you to see who you are or something. That was weird.
Make sure you're not a robot.
Before they would let you connect. So like every step of the way were these little goofy hiccups that I had no idea. And so, I'm thinking, oh God, how am I going to get this event off the ground? And, thankfully we did. But as I said, first one took a ton of time. Second one took a lot less. The other thing I would highly recommend people do, especially if you're going to have like a scheduled thing like that, is have a run of show along with your agenda. And this was my friend who does the event planning taught me. Run of show is behind the scenes. My sister helped me out as well. She and her husband own an event planning company. So they did a lot of work behind the scenes for me. We created banners and we put them in chronological order. And so she had this run of show that said at 6:03, put up this banner, at 6:05, put up this one, put this question on the screen, all these different banners. So we created those, we lined them up, we created this run of show, which is minute by minute for the people on the show to follow along with. And then we also created an agenda that was more like in sort of 15-minute blocks for the audience.
Yeah. I love this. The two like parallels, like we're getting a lot of really good advice about like different things here. So I do also want to ask, when did you have your launch parties in relation to the actual publication of your book?
So I published on August 23rd of 2021, and I think my launch party was October 2nd. I spaced it out a little bit longer because, post-COVID, there's a few like supply issues. So I really wanted my books present at my launch event, for, obvious reasons, in case someone wanted to buy another book. So I intentionally spaced it out, probably that's about a month and a half, right? About that. So about a month and a half after I published, just so people could either get the book after I mail it to them or could have the opportunity to buy a book at my launch event. So that was why I spaced it out a little bit longer.
Mine was about the same. My book published December 10th, and I did the events on consecutive Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm on the East Coast. So that kind of felt like a good time for East Coast and maybe Central Time Zone people to come. And yeah, it was about 5 or 6 weeks after. I probably would have done it earlier, but Christmas was kind of right in the middle there and New Year's and all that. And I didn't want to kind of get caught in the middle of all that. So I pushed it beyond January. And then because quite frankly, I dragged my feet on planning it, I had to push it out again. So I probably would have done it about a month after. To Reilly's point about having the books is kind of nice, especially if you're doing it live. So you can sign and sell some there, which would have been really cool if you have an audience that can buy your book. But yeah, about 4 to 6 weeks after. But again, I'll stress, I really wish I would have had that next event planned when I had those going, so I could have promoted it.
Yeah. See, when I had my launch party in the before times, before COVID, I was able to have the launch party 2 weeks after I published, and I had all my books before the days of the trials and tribulations of shipping and printing delays.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the pandemic continues to shape the ecosystem of how we do these launch parties. But we're still fun.
I would like to add one other thought to this as people are kind of mapping out their launch in their mind, which is not only the event itself, maybe one for beta readers, maybe one for the public, having that next event. I would also stress to you that in between all these events, you should be doing things like interviews on podcasts and trying to get, interviews at magazines and things like this. So like think about, again, my book came out the same time as Matthew McConaughey's. I mean, he was everywhere. He was in magazines, he was on radio shows, he was on TV. Like I really tried to replicate that model as best I could. And like, I think that's a great way to do it. You just have to have, I like to use sort of the movie launch campaign we've talked about, or a political campaign. Like you've got to get this groundswell of activity to get a bunch of things happening. And so I can't stress that enough. Don't think about a book launch as a singular event. Think about it as a series of, 5 to 10 events.
Kyra, I know you have a follow-up question. Are you frozen?
I think she's frozen.
Oh no, she messaged us that she has a follow-up question for you guys. So when she comes back, we'll let her ask that. So in line with, there she is.
I'm back. I have no idea what just happened, but hello, beautiful people. I did have a quick follow-up question.
She was lost in the Matrix.
Yeah, what? The one thing that I quickly said was that an example that you actually use a lot, John, but in parallel to the movie model, is the child. Like everybody saw the child, also known as Baby Yoda, also known as Grogu, everywhere before the Mandalorian came out. So I just wanted to give you credit for that example, because
thank you.
Really, to your earlier point about the book launch being like the kickoff, it's kind of like the beginning of your broader book tour. So my question for you guys as a follow-up would be, so we know that, like, particularly during the pre-sale campaign, being involved in the launch party is a part of a broader perk. But how did you guys otherwise advertise the event? Did you make an Eventbrite? Did you make a Facebook event? Like, how did people know about this event other than the fact that they knew it was coming through engagement with your pre-sale?
Yeah. So I was probably a little extra about it. I made like really simple like invites on Canva and printed them, and then I sent them out and put like wax seals on them, made them super fun, made them very like, guys, this is a historical fiction. I'm gonna give you like a paper invite with like a wax seal, and I mean, letters are a big part of my book, so I was like, you should get a paper invitation to my launch party. So definitely like made it kind of like a branding opportunity for the launch party to kind of get them excited about coming. And I sent those out maybe a month before the event, just so they could like start kind of getting excited about it.
I love that idea. You've got my gears turning now for like whenever, I mean, I know
Yes,
it's months away, but for whenever I do my my launch party, I live in a town that has a lot of historical homes and places that are all built around in the Victorian era. So like, I'm really excited to have that brand alignment and have my launch party in a historic house.
Sorry, I forgot the question. Can you remind me of the question?
Yes, the question is, how did you let people know or invite them to? Yeah.
So I did. I put it on my Facebook group, which was the beta readers. I also have an email list that I sent it out to for the beta reader one. So I'll say I over communicated to that, but entirely digitally. And then, as I mentioned earlier, my sister and brother-in-law have an event planning company, so they actually were nice enough to make me a custom invite, which was really cool. Literally had like the cover of my book is like the backs, sort of the behind, as you have the coffee shop here. The invite had the book cover behind it, which was really cool. Totally customized it for me. and did that, which was great. And then they also, as I said, my sister basically produced the show. She sat behind the scenes doing all these, putting all the banners in and out, helped me design the thing. That was really cool. For the public one, very different story. Part of the reason I very intentionally chose the 2 highest profile guys in my books is one has like 50,000 followers on Twitter, one has 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I intentionally would put promotions out about them and tag them and say, hey, join me for my book launch. Jose Perez is going to host it. And I would tag him, and then it would help magnify his audience. So I would kind of do these rotating posts between the 2 of them and tag each of them. The other guy is big on Twitter, so I would put it on there for him, and then they would reshare it. So really, and of course, announced it to my beta readers as well to ask for help. But I really tried to leverage the guests as best I could.
I think this is that comment, John, is a really great segue into this question. So you've also mentioned the idea of like alluding to the next thing or promoting the next thing at your event, which was something you wished you had done at the time. But when you guys did your launch events, what was your kind of call to action at the end of the party?
I feel like mine was definitely that book 2 was coming, that I could like tease that in a way that, hey, you guys want to read this one because there's a sequel coming. Little did they know that the sequel could also be a standalone. But I mean, there's still information in the first book that would be crucial to know in the second one. So that was kind of like, hey, read this because there's more stuff coming. At that point, I didn't have a ton planned yet for the rest of kind of my experience with All My Love from the Trenches, but that was kind of like the incentive to, read my book and leave a review because there's a second one coming and you'll want to leave a review for that one too and you'll want to keep doing it. So yeah, I feel like mine was definitely that I could at least tease that there was something else coming. There was something else in the works where if they liked this book, which, I really hoped they would, if they liked this book, there's another one. So,
and asking them to leave reviews, that's essential. I remember asking people at the party to leave reviews while they were there, because then they had all their questions about like, can I leave a review on Amazon even though I bought it from you? Yes, you can.
Yes.
Can I leave a review
Everywhere.
if we have the same last name? Probably not. All those things. And so I had someone, like one of the reviews, if you look on Amazon, someone took a picture of the book on the table at the party and posted it with their review. It was hilarious.
That's awesome. For me, it was about asking my first one, beta readers, hey, I'm launching this business. I'd love your help and support. If you know someone who could be a good candidate to work with me, please send them my way and please promote my book and go write a review for it. The public one was very much the big ask. I tried to make it much more specific. It was, here's a link to my calendar, the Calendly link, click on this thing and I'll do a 15-minute, complimentary consult with you about whether or not it's a good fit for us to work together. So I was much more specific with that one, but I really would have loved to have had another event to invite people to in retrospect. Did I answer your question or did you zoom out again? Did you?
You did definitely answer the question. I was just waiting to see if Kyra had a follow-up.
Well, I was
pause for dramatic effect.
Yes, I kind of do have a follow-up. So in asking, like when you have this call to action, I guess my question would then be, well, I guess you kind of incorporated the answers to this question, the answers you guys already gave. But I guess my follow-up question was about how do you incentivize further engagements? Like it's one thing to just tell them, oh, more things are coming, but like how do you indicate that I am giving more to you specifically as this section of my audience?
That's a super good question. I think I was definitely I was definitely talking to all the people at my party, like, hey, you guys were the first to pre-order this book, so I want you guys to be the first to get your hands on the next one. Because if you were excited about this one, I think you're really gonna like the next one. Because,
Uh-oh.
Did I go away?
There we go.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Because
my Wi-Fi is freaking out. but you know, with All My Love from the Trenches covering World War I, I kind of got to say, like, the next book is going to be after the war ends, which everyone knows that, you know, after World War I came the 20s, and everyone loves the 20s. The 20s are huge. Everyone loves the Gatsby, the Hemingway, the Jazz Age, everything about it. So I was like, guys, book 2 is going to be fun. Like, this one, like, I want you guys to get your hands on the next one. So, you know, follow me on all the social media things. I gave everyone like bookmarks that had like a little quote from the book and like the name of the book and all my social media on it. So I gave everyone a bookmark with a book. I stuck them all in there, and I was like, guys, you need to follow me and stay up to date on all these things so you know what's coming because stuff's happening. So it was definitely like a, hey, you're here because you were the first people to care about this book. And if the next book comes out, I want you guys to be the first people to care about that one. So it was very much like a, love you so much. Stay up to date because there are exciting things happening.
That I love the Roaring Twenties. Who wouldn't love that, right? What the question was, how did I sort of add value for my author, the readers, the attendees?
Yeah, like how did you view them or ensure to them that you saw them in a special way because they were engaged with your launch party?
I mean, that was a big part of the messaging that I shared with them. You know, thank them at the beginning. I think I might have said earlier, I actually read a lot of the names from the acknowledgments out loud, particularly people that went above and beyond. And I had people that edited every chapter of my book. And so I've made it, you know, special shout outs to people that made, I'll say, lost Reilly. People that made, you know, really went above and beyond. I definitely said their names out loud and thanked them publicly and tried to give them as best I could a big hug, if you will, even through a virtual format. But because it wasn't live, there was no like giveaway. I did do something around offering the ebook, and I'm forgetting what I did now. I think I offered some kind of promotion, like, hey, if you refer someone to me, I'll send you an ebook or something like this. I forget exactly what I did, but I did do something with the ebook. I'm just blanking on it right now.
The last follow-up question that I have to this one is super short. Would you call the people that engage in your launch party, like, would you automatically frame them as your super fans? Or would you even say that those super fans are a subcategory of the people who were there?
Ooh, nuance.
We're splitting hairs now, aren't we? Reilly, you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like a lot of the people that were at my launch event were my super fans. Like I had some family show up that like I was like, I did not expect you to be here. I had people travel some ways to come, and I was like, you wanted to come to Indiana for this? Love you. So yeah, I would definitely classify the people that were at my launch party as my super fans, but there were also people that were, you know, messaging me throughout the event. They're like, what are you talking about? Am I missing something? That pre-ordered the book and got an invitation but couldn't come. So I think it's probably both, because I definitely had people that were messaging me throughout the day that were like, what's happening? What am I missing? Can I know about this? And so
you should be here.
I know. I'm like, you know, just hopped on a plane. But yeah, so I think I definitely had both, but I would say the majority of the people at my launch event were definitely considered, you know, my super fans.
Well, and it sounds like for you, John, with you promoting the event, that maybe you had some people that you haven't even spoken to before. Like, did you have strangers come in, kind of walk in, as it were?
On the public one, for sure. The beta reader one was, you know, that only went out to the people, and that was part of the messaging. Hey, this is just for you all. You know, it was a very exclusive event, which, you know, part of the pre-sale, you market that, right? You get invited to this special.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure they knew they were participating in this special event. And it was really cool to have, you know, to be able to market it with a Bloomberg journalist hosting it and having a Microsoft.
And they were getting that
executive
thing that you promised them.
Yeah. And it was fun to be able to market one having, just an amazing journalist to be MC and interview me, but two, hey, here's the lead story in chapter 5. And let's find the story behind the story of this guy. And people really appreciated that. Like, here's a real human that I read about in your book, and here he is. We got to talk to him for a half hour. So that was really, I think people really appreciated that. In fact, I know they did because I asked.
Yeah, at my launch party, I did a I had it at this like
I skipped
art gallery.
Lunch.
I had it at this art gallery that's like on the corner in downtown Galveston, and so December in Texas is fairly temperate. So we left the doors open, and I had like an author poster on an easel sitting outside the door. So we had people wander in. Like it was both like a public event / they agreed to let me have the space for what I needed to happen. Like it was all very much like I didn't have to rent it out, but like it wasn't completely exclusive. But it was kind of fun because I did have strangers just like walking off the street and then buy books from me, which was like really, really a cool experience. But then a lot of them were super fans and beta readers.
You just made me think of a thing, Mackenzie, that if I did it again, I would do is get my book cover on like go to Kinko's or whatever and get it on an easel, like 3x4 or whatever. I thought about doing that, and you can see my stack of books maybe over here behind me. For the book launch, I did bring them up so they were right next to me, so it was very clear and easy to see them. But in retrospect, I would have done the big easel thing, and that would have been really cool to do. I know a few authors have done that, but I think that's a good idea. I mean, my dream really was to do it at my big name guy in the book, The Motley Fool, in their offices. But as I said, because of COVID, they just weren't letting people in their offices at that time. But
yeah,
I want to reinforce that idea, because don't limit yourself. Like, there's so many different ways you could do this, and just sort of get them all on paper and then reach out. And I was surprised how much people were willing to help me out with that. As I was surprised so many times throughout the journey when I was asking people for help about whatever stage I was, sort of dealing with, and they were happy to do so. That was really cool. So ask your beta readers for more help, and don't feel like you're over asking, because they want to be a part of it. That's part of the fun.
Yeah. Well, so as we bring up this final question for you guys, I do want to remind the audience, feel free to ask a question in the chat, as we're kind of asking this last one here. What has been your favorite moment of your book journey so far? Because like you mentioned, the launch is not the Super Bowl, it's the kickoff. So you guys have had quite a wild season, as it were, since you guys launched your book. So any favorite moments?
I love when, this is so small, but I love when strangers leave reviews, because it's one thing to get like a review from someone that you know and love, but it's super fun when you get like a review from strangers and they have like highlighted specific lines of your book. You're like, let me just go cry real fast. It's so fun, and it's really so small, but it's like so special. But yeah, like a bigger thing has been super fun to just like go into bookstores and talk to them and be like, hey, do you want to like put my book on a shelf, please? And to talk to people and just like they get excited about it, because I mean, a lot of people that I've talked to in the bookstores, they're like, I've never met an author, this is so fun. Which I'm like, you work in a bookstore, you've never met an author? I feel like that's a natural occurrence, but it's been super fun to talk to those people, because they're like, oh my gosh, can I have one? I want to read it. Can I read it before it goes on the shelf? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, go ahead. So, I mean, things like that, just seeing random people, seeing strangers excited about your work is super, super exciting.
Yeah, I think I might piggyback that one, Reilly, and say that this guy in, I don't even know where he is. I don't think he's in the US, like posted a picture of my book on LinkedIn and then highlighted words in the book and said, oh my God, this guy's, as in me, this author's message is super resonating with me. You should go check out the book. I didn't know this guy from anybody. From anywhere. And that was a really cool moment. And I think another big one was people that bought my book in the pre-sale. I reached out to them to talk about doing potentially different coaching things. And when they actually wrote me a check to come talk to their team and do some leadership training, and that check hit my bank account, that was a pretty fun day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good day. We do have one
That first one was particularly good.
We do have one question in the chat, and this is going to be funny. So, should you have more than one book launch party? And I think I know what John would say, but I'm going to let him answer.
Yeah, and maybe Omar, you weren't on earlier when we talked about it, but I did one just for the beta readers and then one for the public with very different messaging. So absolutely. And then in between those, I did a number of podcasts, and I would encourage everybody to do the same. And as that's happening, try to line up more speaking engagements. I mean, I did get a great speaking engagement right beyond my book launch at a big conference, which was cool. So you want all these. I compare a book launch, we talked about the movie, we talked about the political campaign. I would also compare it to, if you've ever seen that stage performer that spins the plates, right? And then they like spin 8 plates, but by the time they get to the 8th one, they've got to run back. Like you want those 8 or 10 plates spinning. And that's what the book launch is about. Like get all these things going, and you have to keep going back to each one of them to sort of keep them alive and moving. But it's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it. And when you get to those events, the support, the outreach that I felt, the love, I'll call it, was just incredible. Like watching all these awesome comments come up in the chat just wasn't about the book at all. It's like, go John, like that was really cool.
Oh.
So yes, Omar is the short answer to your question.
Oh, here's another one. Should you have one for the ebook and then another one for the paperback?
Well, those, for me, they come out at the same time. So it's a little anticlimactic to hand someone an ebook because you can't, right? But what I'm actually considering is doing a launch event for my audiobook, which is about to come out, which I think would be kind of interesting. And so you could do it with the paperback, the hardcover, and the audiobook. I think that's an option to kind of drum up more interest. I don't know, the ebook and paperback, that's a little tricky one for me, but I'm sure there's a creative way to do it.
Yeah, I remember when my hardcover edition came out, I did not do a launch party because it was like peak COVID. Like we're all in lockdown, nothing's happening. So I was like, well, here's the hardcover, you guys. And I did like a pre-order thing for it and sent people signed copies. So like I didn't do nothing, but I am excited to do I want to do something for the audiobook launch too, John. That's a good reminder. Ooh, what are good examples of call to actions? I would love for Kyra to answer this question as well.
So I think that, again, it ultimately depends on what your ask is for your audience and how you intend to. So to build off of something that John said earlier, it's good to have other engagement points emerging beyond your book launch party, because then one of the major call to actions is to engage in those future events, like listen to the podcast episodes that are coming up, come to the next event. So that's a big one. Another huge one, as we alluded to earlier, is definitely leaving reviews, because if your super fans who are there at your launch party want not only enjoy your book, but want for other people to enjoy your book, reviews are like the key to your book being boosted into algorithms. In fact, on Amazon more specifically, if you have 50 reviews, it automatically gets converted into being incorporated into newsletters underneath your genre for people who subscribe to Amazon books. So that's a huge audience builder for you. Another thing is the call to action could be for them to give you ideas for what they want to see from you and your book journey. Because at the end of the day, you might have all these things in mind for what you want to have for your book journey, but at the same time, you're in active dialogue with your audience, and there might be some things that they want to see from you that you didn't even think of, like book merch. Sure, you might have thought of book merch, but that wasn't a priority for you. But one of your audience members pulls up and says, I need a candle like yesterday. So then that helps you restructure your priorities around what your next steps will be in developing your brand. So I think those are some pretty strong call to action, letting them know what you're going to be doing next, as John alluded to earlier, asking them for reviews so that your audience can grow, and asking them what they want from you so that you can continue to build the symbiotic relationship.
Taylor Swift does an excellent job of that last one. She said in an interview that, she doesn't have to work super hard because her audience members tell her exactly what they want. Like, she's like, I just lurk on social media. They tell me what they want. And then you get things like, you want a custom Taylor Swift cardigan? Here you go. You want a re-release of this very specific song? You want a 10-minute version? All right, no problem. Here it is from the vault. So, she's been doing really well lately, so I felt like that needed to be mentioned.
It's true.
You made me think of my ebook idea from the book launch to Masama's question here, which was, I said, if you write me a review on Amazon, I'll send an ebook to anyone you want. And so it's kind of two birds with one stone. Got reviews and then got a new email, a new person to add to my email list for my blog, and I sent out a weekly email. So that was another one I did. I forgot about.
That's a really good
that
idea.
was a good one, John. Email being added to like a newsletter or something. That's another engagement point. Totally forgot about that.
That's another good call to action. Well,
the people on that one were already on my email list, but I was asking them to try to help me grow it. I don't think I did that on the public one, but definitely on the beta reader one. If you write a review.
Panelists have any parting words for the viewers at home?
Make your launch party like fun for you too.
Yeah.
Like you are.
Mic drop.
Make your launch party fun for you. There.
That was awesome. Maybe I'll jump in with my thoughts if that's all right. Absolutely. Try to make it fun for you too, which was great. Oh, Reilly, welcome back. Anything you'd like to add to your fun thing?
I think she's still frozen.
She's only halfway.
So go ahead. She'll come back.
Definitely try to make it fun, but definitely don't think about it as a singular event, and absolutely think about what your bigger goals are from that event, and make sure that whatever you do helps align you with getting there. And so whatever those goals are, but make sure something about those events helps push you in that direction in a big way. If it's gathering new audience members, if it's selling books, if it's launching a business, whatever it is, like make sure you have that goal in mind, and try to engage the audience as much as you can throughout the event. This one, StreamYard is great because of this chat thing, and honestly, it really worked. I was surprised how active it was during my events. People really appreciated that. Reilly, are we back?
Reilly, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Sorry about my Wi-Fi, guys. It's acting so weird on me. But yeah, I was just gonna say, make it fun for you too, because at the end of the day, you want to sell books and you want to keep engaging your audience and you want to be doing all those things, but your launch party is a kickoff. So, it is a celebration with the people who were really, really excited to support you. So don't obviously put some thought into your launch party, but this should not be some great anxiety inducing, stressful thing. This is supposed to be a really fun event to kick off your book and celebrate and engage your audience and have fun. So, obviously think of all the ways to engage your audience and, give them a call to action and do all those things, but also it should be fun. Don't worry about it so much that it makes it not fun.
You only launch your first book once.
Can I add one nugget to that idea?
Yes.
Or that thought, which is back to this whole, the whole thing behind pre-sale and beta readers is you're giving people this, sort of insider's view of this whole book production and book launch thing. Don't be afraid to reach out to your beta readers to say, what do you think a book launch should look like? And, I talked to several people in my beta readers, and fortunately some of them had some really, really interesting backgrounds, marketing and event planning and things like that. They don't even have to have that. Just say, hey, what would be interesting for you in this kind of thing? This is an idea. I used to do a lot of event planning. I spent 23 something years on Wall Street. And one of the ways that I would plan my big high ticket sort of special events is I'd go to the top 3 people I really wanted to be there. And I'd say, hey, what do you want this event to look like? And they'd be like, oh, this, this, and this. And then I'd plan the event around that. And I'd be like, hey, you want to come to my event? What are you doing? Well, I'm doing this, this, and this. And they'd be like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. I was like, let's do it. So, think about it from that perspective as well. Who are the people you really want to be there and make happy about it? They could create further leverage for you and get their feedback. And
I think there should be chocolate cake.
And
guess what? There's chocolate cake.
Right. I love brownies, right?
Amazing. I want to thank you both for your time today and for your advice. Very much appreciated.
Hugely.
Thanks for asking.
Hugely
Having me
Yeah,
here.
thanks.
All right, you guys, that is the coffee chat for today. As always, if you want to suggest a topic, feel free to leave it in the comments of this video. Feel free to reach out to us at any of the links below. And that is this one. There will be another one next week. Kyra, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to be talking about how to market your book offline. We talk about social media and internet engagement a lot and circulating marketing for your book, but we're going to be talking about how to do so off the computer screen and the mobile phones with Taylor Kickbush. We're super, super excited about that.
So until next time, that is Coffee Chat for today. Bye, everybody.
Bye, beautiful people.